The Merchant's Tale. There was a knight one time of good renown, in Lombardy. Pavia was the town. He lived there very prosperously for more than 60 years, and was a bachelor, though always taking bodily delight on women such as pleased his appetite, as do these foolish worldlings never fear. Now when this knight had passed his 60th year, whether it was for dotage or a surge of holiness, who knows, he felt an urge so violent to be a wedded man that day and night his eager fancies ran on how to single out the perfect bride, praying the Lord he might not be denied once to have the knowledge of that blissful life there is between a husband and a wife, and live within the holy bond and tether in which God first bound woman and man together. No other life, he said, is worth a bean, for wedlock is so easy and so clean, it is a very paradise on earth. Thus said this aging knight, so full of worth. And certainly, as sure as God is king, to take a wife is a most glorious thing, especially if a man is old and hoary. Then she's the fruit of all his wealth and glory. It's then he ought to take her young and fair, one upon whom he might beget an heir, and live in joy that nothing could surpass. Whereas these bachelors must sing alas, whenever they meet with some adversity, in love, which is but childish vanity. And it's no more than right it should be so of bachelors, if bachelors are oft consumed with woe. On brittle ground they build, so all is ready for brittle love, though they expect a steady. Their liberty is that of bird or beast. They've no restraint, no discipline at least, whereas a married man achieves a state of bliss that's orderly and fortunate. Under the yoke of matrimony bowed, the heart in bliss abounding sings a lode. For who is so obedient as a wife? Who is so true, so careful for his life, whether in health or sickness as a mate? For weal or woe she tends upon his state, never forsakes him in her love or tires, though he lie bedridden till he expires. And yet some writers say this isn't so. One such was Theophratus long ago. Who cares if Theophratus was a liar? Don't take a wife, he said, from a desire to make economies and spare expense. A faithful servant shows more diligence in guarding your possessions than a wife, for she claims half you have throughout her life, and if you're sick, God may give me joy. And if you're sick, as God may give me joy, your friends, even an honest serving boy, do more than she who's watching for a way to corner your possessions night and day. If you take a wife into your bed, you're very likely to be cuckolded. Opinions such as these and hundreds worse this fellow wrote. God lay him under curse. But take no heed of all such vanity. Defy foul Theophratus, and hear me. A wife is verily the gift of God. All other kinds of gift, the fruitful sod of land, fair pastures, movables in stone, rents, they're the gifts of fortune, nothing more. Of lands, fair pastures, movables in store, rents, they're the gifts of fortune, nothing more, that pass as does a shadow on a wall. Still, if I must speak plainly after all, a wife does last some time, and time may lapse a good deal slower than one likes perhaps. If marriage is a monumentous sacrament, bachelordom contemptible and spent in helpless desolation and remorse, I'm speaking of the laity, of course. I don't say this for nothing. Listen why. Woman was made to be a man's ally. When God created Adam flesh and bone and saw him belly naked and alone, he and his endless goodness thus began. Let us now make a helpmate for this man, like to himself, and he created Eve. Here lies the proof of what we all believe, that woman is man's helper, his resort, his earthly paradise, and his disport. So pliant and so virtuous is she, they cannot but abide in unity. One flesh they are, one flesh, as I suppose, has but a single heart in joys and woes. A wife, Saint Mary, what a benediction! How can a man be subject to affliction, who has a wife? Indeed I cannot say. There is a bliss between them such as may no tongue tell forth, such as no heart can judge. If he be poor, she helps her man to drudge, sets guard upon his goods, and checks the waste. All that her husband likes is to her taste. She never once says no when he says yes. Do this, says he. Already done, she says. O blissful state of wedlock! No way vicious, but virtuous and merry, nay, delicious, and so condemned and approval withal, and so commended and approved withal, that any man who's worth a leek should fall down on his knees in gratitude for life, to God for having given him a wife, or else pray God that he vouchsafe to send a wife to him, to last him till the end. Then he can count upon security, and not be tricked, as far as I can see, provided that he works by her advice. Then he can hold his head up, and how nice, how truthful, how discreet in his replies a woman is, to do as do the wise. Do as she says, and you'll be happy then. Jacob, as I have heard from learned men, did as Rebekah said. She bid him deck. She was his mother, skins about his neck, and so he won his father's benison. Take Judith, in the story further on. She saved God's people wisely. Them she kept, by slaying. Holofernes, while he slept. Take Abigail. What good advice she gave! It saved her husband, Nabal, from the grave. Take Esther, too, whose wisdom brought relief to all God's people, saved them from their grief, and made Ahasuerus grand promotion to Mordecai for his true devotion. There's no degree superlative in life, says Seneca, above a humble wife. The tongue of wife, so Cato was to say it, commands the husband suffer and obey it, and yet she will obey by courtesy. A wife is guardian of your husbandry. Well may a man in sickness wail and weep, who has no wife to nurse him and to keep his house for him. Do wisely then, and search for one, and love her as Christ loves his church. For if you love yourself, you love your wife. For no one hates his flesh, nay, all his life. He fosters it, and so I bid you wive, and cherish her, or you will never thrive. Husbands and wife, whatever the worldly say, in ribald jest, are on the straight sure way. They are so knit, no accident or strife harms them, particularly not the wife. So January thought of whom I'm told, deeply considering as he grew old, the life of lusty joy and virtuous quest that marriage offers, the life of lusty joy and virtuous quiet that marriage offers in its honey diet. And so one day he sent for all his friends to tell them how he meant to gain his ends. With serious face he spoke, and solemn tongue. My friends, he said, I am no longer young. God knows I'm on the threshold of the grave. I ought to think I have a soul to save. My body I have foolishly expended. Blessed be God that still can be amended. I have resolved to be a wedded man, and that at once in all haste I can. To some fair virgin, one of tender years, prepare yourselves to help as overseers against my wedding, for I will not wait. I, for my own part, will investigate, and soon to find a tender girl, if any, be fit to marry me. Since you are many, you may discern more readily than I where it would be best to where it would best befit me to ally. But, my dear friends, you may as well be told, the women must on no account be old, certainly under 20, and demure. Flesh should be young, though fish should be mature, as pike, not pickerel, makes the tastier meal. Old beef is not so good as tender veal. I'll have no woman 30 years of age. That's only fodder, bean straw for a cage. God knows these ancient widows know their trade. They are as tricky as the boat of Wade, with so much trouble breaking when they please. To fight I should not have a moment's ease. Subtle is the scholar, taught in several schools. Women are taught in many, they're no fools. Half scholars, one might say, but when they're young, a man can still control them with his tongue, and guide them, should their duty seem too lax, just as a man may model in warm wax. So let me sum the matter in a clause. I will have no old woman for this cause, for were I so unlucky as to marry, where could I take no pleasure? I'd miscarry. I should commit adultery and slide straight downwards to the devil when I died. I could begat no child on her to greet me, yet I had rather that the dog should eat me, than that my fine inheritance should fall into strange hands. That, let me tell you all, I'm not a fool. I know the reason why people should wed, though I could specify many who prate of it, but I engage. They know about as little as my page. Touching the reasons one should take a wife, a man unable to be chaste in life should take a wife in holy dedication, and for the sake of lawful procreation, of children, to the honor of God above, not as a paramour or lady love, but to curb lechery, which he should eschew, paying his debt whenever it falls due, and each a willing helper to the other, in trouble like a sister to a brother, and live a life of holy chastity. But, by your leave, sirs, that would not suit me, for God be thanked, I dare to make the claim. I feel my limbs sufficient, strong and game, for all that is belonging to a man, and am my own best judge in what I can. I may seem hoary, but I'm like a tree that blossoms white before the fruit can be. Blossoming trees are neither dry nor dead, and I am only hoary in my head. My heart and all my members are as green as laurel, all the year round, I mean. And now you are informed of my intention. I beg you agree, without dissension.